clock, so I think we will go ahead and get started. As Julie mentioned, we are going to be recording, so if folks join us a little later, they'll be able to view it. I should also mention too that it looks like we have representatives from Channel 11 and Channel 13 on the call, so be aware that we do have media listening in. My name is Wendy Grams. I'm the President and CEO of the Toledo Regional Chamber of Commerce. We represent about 2,300 companies from throughout the region, so basically Lucas and Wood County and some in Fulton. And so it's a pleasure to have you all with us this afternoon. We had a great session this morning with the restaurant owners from around the region and are expecting a great call this afternoon as well. This is being done as part of our Northwest Ohio Business Reboot Initiative, which is an initiative that we started at the Chamber, really focusing on our Small Business Development Center. The Small Business Development Center is funded by the Chamber, the state of Ohio, and the U.S. Small Business Administration, or the SBA, which I know a lot of you are a lot more familiar with the SBA than you might have been a couple of months ago, but we've been very familiar with them for quite some time. The SBDC provides does a lot of things, but primarily is based on one-on-one, no-cost confidential consulting with businesses. We worked a lot with startup businesses through most of the history of the SBDC, which goes back to 1982, I believe. But since 2008, during the recession of 2008, we really, during that recession, started to work a lot more with existing companies, and that has really carried through as we've gone on since then. We work primarily about 60% with existing companies, and then about 40% with startups. So some of you may or may not be familiar with what we do, so I thought I'd just spend a minute with that. So again, our Reboot initiative was something that we put together to really focus what we do on recovery efforts. And we have a number of partners in that that you'll see when I'm going to share the screen here and go over our website, because it is the best opportunity for all of you to, and I apparently can't talk and do this. Oh, can't talk and do this at the same time. How do I get this back? There we go. Okay. I can do this. Okay, I'm going to pull up the Chamber's website. There we go. So we've put together a lot of information on our site, and specifically if you scroll down, there's the invitation to the 2 roundtables. We have our Northwest Ohio Reboot Initiative, and if you click on that, there is a lot of information on what's happening with the pandemic and on reopening. You can see right at the top, you can click on that to contact the SBDC, which it sounds like at least one of you has already done. You can request that one-on-one assistance that I mentioned right there off of the website, or certainly email us or call us. And that's for that one-on-one discussion about your particular business and some issue that you might be having. And then you also have the health department guide to reopening and a business checklist that we put together. So if you haven't taken a look at that, please do so. And then we have our webinar page. If you were to click on that, it will show you all of the webinars that are taking place with the Chamber, but not just the Chamber related, but a lot of our partners are putting their webinars up as well. So that's a great place to find all of that. We also have our business resources regarding the coronavirus. You can find that. We have our business reboot policy recommendations. So we are talking with state, local, and federal officials every day about, again, some of the challenges with PPP, or some things related to liquor licenses or property taxes. There's some of those sorts of things that we've identified that could make things easier for businesses as we reboot the economy. So you could click on that and see all of that information. And then you'll see our partners, pretty wide range of organizations that generally provide direct assistance to the business community. So we're we're happy that they've agreed to join in with us as well. So I just wanted to take a minute to show you that the website, in case you haven't looked at it. Just a lot of very content-rich information that should answer a lot of your questions. It'll take you to some other places where, and some other organizations that might have answers to questions as well. So please feel free to explore those resources when you have the opportunity. With that, I am going to introduce, we have about 4 or 5 individuals that are going to make some opening remarks, and then we really want to get to some of your questions as you plan to reopen at the end of the week. And first, we're going to start with, thought it would make some sense to start with Andrew Montree from Great Lakes Marketing Research. They put together a survey that really gives you a glimpse into what consumer confidence and consumer expectations are going to be as we reboot the regional economy. So I will turn it over to Andrew.
All right, thank you so much. Good afternoon, everybody. Thank you for tuning in today to the Chamber of Commerce, and to Julie, we thank you for inviting us to present this data. Just to give a short background on who I am and who we are as a company, my name is Andrew Montree, as Wendy said, and I work here at Great Lakes Marketing as an assistant project manager. Great Lakes Marketing itself was founded in 1964 and is headquartered in the great city of Toledo, Ohio. We are a full-service marketing research and consulting firm. And on behalf of Great Lakes Marketing, I'd like to thank you all for all that you do for our community, and I hope you find this data relevant and useful. So what this data represents is a story about how Toledoans are feeling regarding the opening of Ohio. It's a snapshot of attitudes and current thoughts about how consumers feel. No doubt that you've been bombarded throughout the past month or two with information about the number of COVID cases and advice on how to open your business or how to meet those guidelines. But what we're talking about here is from a different perspective. This is about how to manage your customers' expectations. So these data are about how consumers are feeling, and we have been hearing so much about how we need to open the doors to our businesses that we might be overlooking how consumers are going to react once those doors are opened. So we conducted a survey with 1,200 Toledoans using our Ask Toledo panel, pretty great size there. Our panel is an opt-in panel of about 30,000 households in the Toledo area. Our goal was to understand how ready we would be when the stay-at-home restrictions were lifted and what to expect when we started to venture out. So just to note, the data is already 2 weeks old, and at this point in time, we all know that attitudes are changing fast as more information comes out. So as we would expect, more things coming out, these things are going to change a little bit. But these customer insights are valuable to use as guide rails to help you navigate your new success strategies. So although this is a short presentation, we wanted to give you the good stuff right off the bat. Our president at the bottom there, Lori Dixon, her email is there, and she can be reached for any questions, or maybe if you have suggestions for our next survey regarding this, she's also happy to take those suggestions. So just wanted to point that out. But we wanted to give you our key findings right at the start so you can think about how does this impact your business as we look at the stats and tables. If you would like to refer back to this presentation, copies are available through the Chamber of Commerce, through their website and through the GLM website. But again, if you have any questions, feel free to ask either at the end of this presentation or to email Lori. So in our survey of about 1,200 adults in Northwest Ohio, only 36% of those adults said that they are ready to return on opening day to public places such as libraries, zoos, play areas, gyms, and movie theaters. It's going to take a few additional months before these venues see over half of their regular users back. A full 1 out of 3 who visit these venues said that they aren't sure when they're going to be comfortable making a return visit. These results are sending a strong message to venues, service providers, and retailers that visitors and customers will expect safety measures in place. We've continued to say this throughout our research on this topic, but it will not be business as usual. And we continue to say this because it is a key discovery. we have to be thinking outside of the box on how to make customers okay with the new unusual. However, once people start to return to you as business owners, you're given this opportunity to change their perception and for them to relay that new positive perception to friends and family so that more people grow more comfortable with going about their daily lives. So some good news for our salon owners and similar businesses. Services that are perceived to be more essential will rebound most quickly. And our customers, what we found is that they are most likely to go back to personal service providers such as salons, barbershops, etc., along with public places such as fitness centers as soon as the restrictions are lifted. Um, Something else, excuse me, sorry about that. Something else we found with our data is a consistent trend throughout all of it is that people of color are less likely to immediately use most of these services compared to white consumers. So with all of that, we will begin to look at the survey results. So as I just mentioned, if you look at the list, the largest percentage of people will visit the beauty shops, barbers, and others in this category as soon as they can, almost 60%. These might be perceived as the more essential visits, which is understandably so. I don't have access to a camera here at my workstation, but if I did, it would most likely be off due to the fact that my hair is starting to look like I'm back in high school. So it's very understandable that people are going to want to get to these services as soon as possible. A huge gap exists between personal services and public places from 59% to 36%. Again, the pattern's clear. The more people that will be expected in these locations, the less appealing these locations become. Only 1 out of 4 who use childcare will be dropping their children off as soon as that is feasible. We're thinking that this is a function of the extended opportunities to work from home, or maybe an older child is out of school now and is able to help with their younger siblings. It raises the question, though, does the more family time, the more time in the home, et cetera, does that create any opportunities for you? It's just something to think about as we go through these slides. Transportation services will also be slow to rebound. Again, this one's a little unique. It isn't a question of how many people are on the bus, but rather how many have passed through before me, how many different people have touched the door, seat, armrest, locks, etc. Even how many different people has the driver been exposed to. And last, we have the biggest hit, which are to our largest venues. It continues on with this trend. The impact on these events from college sports to resort locations is that tickets are purchased in advance. If consumers are not confident about when they will be comfortable returning to large venues, they won't be buying tickets, which then will have that ripple effect of not making other purchases that are associated with major outings. The main point of this storyline is that consumers are not feeling confident, unfortunately. The burden will be on those who serve the public to give them confidence that their health and safety is a priority. Consumer confidence will be the key through all of this. So a little bit more tailored towards what we are talking about today with salons and barbershops, those sorts of personal services. When giving the survey, those establishments were grouped into this category of public places. So the information that we got from there is that 3 out of 4 who visit public places, such as your establishments, will be expecting access to hand sanitizers and a commitment to social distancing. From there, we see that people are also expecting face coverings on employee gloves. Some may even want masks. A little less than half would like masks made available to the visitors there. So for many establishments, the challenge is going to be how to accommodate some of these expectations within the physical design of your building. And it may be impossible to provide these safeguards for employees and patrons within the current business model. But if we can look at these social pressures and consumer expectations from the positive perspective, it may be the prompt to begin thinking outside of the normal business model to figuring out how you can meet the needs of your consumers or the public through using some creative solutions. So speaking of creative solutions, we encourage you to rethink your customer's journey. As you think through the process, you may be surprised at the creative solutions you develop, and some of them will probably be worthy of you continuing to implement long after this virus has left us. So we're going to use a salon visit as an example. So let's consider what the customer journey looked like prior to the pandemic. So first, looking at the top line there, a customer would approach your business and likely open the door and make contact with the handle or some part of the door in some context. Next, they'd be greeted by an employee, followed by taking a seat in the waiting area until it is time for their appointment. They may browse product that you have out, picking up things to read them and putting them back. From there, they are seated, possibly next to another customer. There's a chat that takes place between the employee and the customer. The customer gets their hair done or a service provided. A payment is then processed, and they exit the establishment, again, coming in contact with the door. So how do we rethink that to fit our business models following the pandemic? So looking at the bottom line there, maybe the door is propped open, or maybe an employee opens it for customers. The person who greets the customer may be wearing a mask. Instead of having a waiting area, you could encourage customers to wait in their cars or outside and contact them by phone once you are ready for their appointment. Product could be placed behind a desk or reception area to prevent customers from touching it while allowing it to be available for purchase. Would it be possible to leave a seat between the customers so that they are not so close to each other while getting their hair done? It's just another thing to think about. Now, the next part is the most important, the chat part. I have quite a few beauticians in my family, and I know the great relationships that they have with their customers. So these chats are what make people feel welcome. Customers come to these salons to relax and to leave feeling great about themselves. So I highly encourage you to encourage your staff to keep these conversations the same, to make people feel relaxed and welcome while in that seat. Employees and customers will hopefully be wearing masks during this process to make sure that the service is completed as safely as possible. After that, payment could be contactless through the use of a credit card without requiring a PIN number. And then again, the customer exits the establishment through the prop door with a positive attitude after having that great experience, which hopefully they will then share with others and help others become more comfortable with going out. And of course, these are all just ideas that we came up with. You know your business better than anyone, so consider your customer's journey and what it will take to make them feel more comfortable. So with that, rebound we will. If you have any questions, please type them in the chat or feel free to email Lori and she will get back to you ASAP. I sort of mentioned earlier, but we will be doing a follow-up survey before the end of the month to see if the perceptions of customers have changed. So if you have any questions you think should be asked in that survey, please also email those to Lori and we'll be hoping to use those in our survey. So thank you again for the opportunity to speak with you all. We truly appreciate being able to share our findings with you. And I appreciate you giving us the time. Thank you.
Great, thank you, Andrew. Really appreciate that. Again, please use the chat room. I did have one question in the chat room, but I think we probably, Andrew probably answered that. So I want to move on. I'm not sure, do we have someone, I didn't see anyone from Lucas County other than I know we have the health department. So I think we'll go to Mayor Wade Kapsakevich for some welcoming remarks. Mayor?
Yes, thank you, Wendy. I want to thank the Chamber for its leadership in bringing this conversation together. It's just such an invaluable service that they are providing to their members right now. They're always at the very forefront of advocacy. I can tell you it is often fierce advocacy. But now, given what's going on, you're just so fortunate to have a group, Bill and Wendy and Brian, the whole team. This conversation, the data that's being linked into the Zoom, what's on their website. I don't know how businesses are going to get through this tough time without them. I also want to thank, even though I don't think he's with us in this conversation, Commissioner Pete Gerken was also important in bringing this conversation together. We are in this, we made the decision as a city when this began to sort of join ourselves at the hip with the governor. Rightly or wrongly, it just made the most sense for us to kind of align ourselves with his decision making. This has not been easy for any of us, of course. And for a community like Toledo that is located on the border of two states that are handling some of these issues very differently. It's been even more of a challenge. Things as silly as golf courses are different when the two as important as how unemployment is working and what the timing of restaurants. It's been unusually difficult for Toledoans because of the border issue. We have decided to stick with our governor, and whether he's right or wrong, we're kind of following his lead. So I am excited, and I know you are excited that you're going to be able to open your doors on Friday. And I will speedily make my way over to one of your shops to get my haircut. But even with this exciting reopening of the economy, there's still kind of strings attached, I guess is how I'll put it. The governor has provided a pretty specific list of requirements, guidelines. Some are recommendations, but others are, carry the weight of law. And so, we're going to be in a position of trying to encourage you every way we can, but also we're going to be in the role of having to make sure that the governor's orders and rules are being followed. So it's a fine line, but I think we can do it. I believe on this call is Sandy Spang, who's not just a longtime small business owner in our community, but a commissioner of economic development who works with small businesses in particular. I hope you all already know about our micro enterprise loan program, for small businesses, 5 employees and less. We are providing $1 million of assistance. We're going to break it out $5,000 to 200 businesses. I think that adds up to $1 million. And the applications there's a 2-week window where you can apply. The response has been, I don't want to say overwhelming, but let's just say there's a need out there. And we are very anxious to get these $5,000 grants out the door to try to help businesses during this tough time. So that's about all. There might be questions that I could probably answer, but I just wanted to give those opening remarks and encourage us all just to keep fighting every day. This is just incredible, and it's always tough to keep a small business going. It's got to be even tougher now. So let's try to do this together. Great,
thank you, Mayor. Really appreciate that. I want to go to, and thank you for mentioning, it really was the County Commissioner Pete Gerken that called us on Friday. We had some of these webinars set up, but he said, I really think we ought to focus on, industry specific. And so we pulled that off in short order, and there'll probably be more coming down the road. I know we are anxiously awaiting the ability to schedule the daycare reboot roundtable. Not sure when that's going to happen, but we're ready to pull the trigger on that as soon as we get a date that those might be able to open. But now I want to go to the Lucas County Health Department. Brandon Polinsky, Program and Quality Improvement Administrator. Again, he's going to kind of go over some of the guidelines specifically related to your types of businesses, and this is a good time to have those questions coming in the chat room. Maybe some of them will be answered, but be thinking about your questions. Brandon?
Hi there, and I do apologize. I had to switch to a massive logo because my background was way too bright. So this was a little more palatable for everyone's eyes, believe me. The health department, first and foremost, is here to help you make sure you can reopen safely, that consumers have confidence in your business, and that along with the governor and county and city, we are giving you the best guidance supported by the best science to limit the impact of COVID-19. So we certainly welcome any questions you may have. The governor has put out, as Mayor Kapsakavage mentioned, specific operating guidance for salons and similar business sectors. So you will want to look at that either at Responsible Restart Ohio or on the health department's website. We have our own Lucas County Open for Business guidance, which goes into a lot of those things that you might want to start implementing to make sure that individuals are feel safe and are safe, and that your employees are protected as well. when you fully reopen your doors and start seeing clients again. With that, I will open the floor back up to Wendy and any questions that might come in.
Thank you, Brandon. Our next scheduled person for comments is Dr. Brenda Holsley, who is a member of the Ohio Association of Beauticians and was also a member of Governor DeWine's advisory board for reopening. Dr. Holsley, would you like to make some comments?
I think you're still on mute, Dr. Holsey.
Yes.
There we
Thank you
go.
for the invitation. I appreciate the invitation to be a voice. I am currently the 22nd president of the Ohio Association of Beauticians, established in 1934, state chartered. We were organized as educational advancement, also for an advocate for social legislation. I was happy to be on the governor's personal service advisory board. Most of the things that, it was 30 of us on that. There were health commissioners, there were state board from our cosmetology and barber board on that. There was another local hairdresser from RETHINK, that's in Sylvania, Ohio, that was on the board. The recommendations that came in are listed with the Responsible Restart Ohio, because cosmetologists, barbers are trained for sanitation, disinfecting, and so forth. All of those are in the laws of cosmetology, the OAC, the OCO, the ORC. It's recorded in the laws. So the mandatory would be that they would follow the laws of the state board. Reopening should not be a problem. Just the inconvenience of distancing would be a problem. But sanitation, health, and safety, those were things that they always had to follow in order to renew their license for being licensed in the state of Ohio. With that, the Ohio Association of Beauticians offers advocacy for our legislations that's going forth and bills that would affect our businesses or our industry. That's for another conversation and for that. But for the Restart Ohio, a lot of cosmetologists, barbers I've talked to, they are ready to go back. Some are still afraid. They don't know because of the invisible pandemic of COVID-19. They're not sure. But if they have things in place as the masks, the PPEs, all that they can do to assure their clients. Also, I've provided them to go and get further education and free certification from Milady. Milady is an educational book that they study from in cosmetology schools. Milady and Barberside on their website, they're offering free certifications in COVID, understanding COVID-19, understanding infectious control diseases, and that's available. That will ensure their clients also that they are ready and they are really responsible and that they're holding the health and safety of them and their employees to restart. And with that, I'll turn it back over to Wendy.
Great, thank you so much. I'm sorry, I didn't realize that you were the president of the Ohio Association. So that's great. And thank you for representing everyone on the governor's task force. We really appreciate that. We do have a couple of questions. Okay. One was about how to apply for the loan that the mayor talked about and what the application window was. I think Sandy Spang is on the call from the city. Sandy, do you want to join us here at the podium, so to speak, and talk a little bit about that and answer those questions?
Sure. Thank you, Wendy, for that opportunity. So we have used some of the community development block grant emergency dollars that were allotted to the city of Toledo through the CARES Act to create a $1 million fund to help micro enterprises. So those are businesses with 5 or less employees that are located within the city of Toledo. These smallest businesses in our community, I know that some of them are represented here. They play an important role in our community and our neighborhoods, and so we want to be of help. And what I think might be of interest to some of the folks who are on this call is that the things that you can use this for are a little bit different than some of the other relief programs that focus more on payroll. If you have stock that you need to replace in order to reopen, things that you need to do to modify your operation, like plexiglass barriers, personal protective equipment, those are eligible. Professional cleaning services, cleaning supplies, as well as commercial rent. So there are some strings attached, as you could say, because this is federal block grant dollars. So your business either needs to be located in a low to moderate income census tract. We have a great interactive map on the application. You can check that, or the household needs to be low to moderate income. And there's also an income chart in the application. So you can find that application on the City of Toledo website. And there's a blue banner. You won't have any trouble finding it if you go to the City of Toledo website. The application process is open until the 24th of May. And we will try to process those as quickly as we can after. We'd like to fund everyone. It is a grant of up to $5,000, and I can tell you that not all applicants are asking for the full $5,000. They're asking for what their business needs and what eligible expenses they have. So I would encourage any of the listeners on this call to take a look at that on our website and see if your business will be eligible. Thanks, Wendy.
Thank you, Sandy.
And Wendy, if I could rudely
Sure.
jump in real quick. I think I saw, it might have been Bill Wurzel or someone, while Sandy was talking, put a link on this Zoom meeting to the application. So it should be right there on your screen if you want to click on it. That's it.
Yep.
You know, Wendy, if I could add one more thing. If there are businesses that have not applied for the Paycheck Protection Program, there's kind of a conception that that program is completely out of money, and it was for a while. But Congress put another $310 billion into that program, and there's still money remaining. So if there are businesses that have not taken advantage of that program, I would encourage them to reach out to their banker. If their banker is not offering that program at this time, they could consider LISC, Local Initiative Service Corp, or I'm sure the SBDC could help them find other lenders that would be offering that at this time. But it is still available. Thanks.
Thank you, Sandy. One question that I also see here is obviously with the employees of salons and personal services being so close to the clients, how much does the cloth mask really protect them? And is there some recommendation on the type of mask that should be used? Brandon?
Okay, yep, I was waiting for that question. So the thing with cloth masks is the protective factor increases when everybody is using them. So when you are wearing a cloth mask, it's not so much that it's stopping you from contracting something, it's stopping you from infecting someone else. So if your clients are wearing cloth masks, it's going to capture those respiratory droplets, which is the main way that COVID is transmitted, as well as some other things. You might help limit the flu too. So that's just a bonus. But so the more people who are wearing masks, if your client are, if you are, maybe only take them off or have your client take them off if you need to access hair that's bound by a strap or something like that. But really those masks is a cumulative factor. The more people who are wearing them and the more distance you keep, I know you can't stand 6 feet apart with scissors on a pole cutting people's hair. That would not be very good. But if you're wearing it while you're with your clients, if you're sanitizing your implements in between clients, and really keeping in mind to limit sick individuals from entering your establishment, ask your clients, do you feel sick? There's some questions that you could ask in our Open for Business guidance, and as well at the CDC and the Ohio Department of Health, that might help you say, well, maybe we should schedule you in a couple weeks if you are feeling ill. Or if your employees are feeling ill, you might want to have them go into that self-quarantine, which is just kind of staying away from as many people as they can for a certain period of time. 14 days is generally what we recommend, to make sure they don't develop symptoms further, or they won't have the possibility of spreading that. Among the guidance that the governor has given, you probably want to also discontinue your customers handling products. Have your employees handle products solely, so customers might be able to look at them, keep them maybe behind a case, but don't let them just come and touch a random product and then leave, and you don't know if that might be accidentally contaminated with something. As well, I've seen guidance that says maybe have your clients wait in the car and text them when it's time to come in, or if your previous appointment is running late, let them know and communicate that way, especially for salons that are very small and you might not have a waiting area, or you might not be able to appropriately distance those in your waiting area that 6 feet apart. Proximity and time in proximity are your two biggest risk factors for COVID, as well as symptomatic individuals. So those are some of the higher level things that you can do, and some of those precautions you can take. Let your clients know, be open, honest, hang signage that tells your hours, tells what precautions you're taking, and that'll help restore their confidence as well. And as more questions come in, I'll speak to some of those, but I see one that just mentions PPE. Without diving into the full meat of that question, PPE for salons will primarily be those cloth masks or those face coverings. You could wear gloves, but if you do, we would recommend changing them between clients. The reason being, gloves could, if you touch a contaminated surface with gloves and then you go touch another contaminated surface, or you're at your point of sale handling money, then those gloves are going to carry whatever you picked up from those other items. Washing your hands is something that seems so simple, but it is really one of the most effective ways to get rid of any potential COVID that could have been on a high contact surface, or could have been on your hands, because the way the virus is structured, it has a component on its shell that soap just binds to, and it just washes right away. So you want to be looking at those EPA registered and recommended cleaners. You want to be making sure you're hitting those high contact surfaces, door handles, your implements as you're using them in between clients, the chairs, really anything that's getting touched or interacted with by your clients or you. And that's why, going back to gloves real quick, we don't typically recommend them unless your industry specifically requires them through regulation. Like in the food industry, certain food workers must wear gloves depending on what they are doing in the process. So it does give that false sense of security. It may feel like you're better protected, but it's that double-edged sword as well, as far as PPE with that is concerned. So I will turn it back over to other questions.
Great,
yeah.
Thanks, Brandon. Hopefully that answered that question. That surgical masks or N95 masks aren't necessarily mandatory, but again, every individual needs to do what feels most comfortable for themselves. So. Also wanted to mention too, I know the gloves came up, and it was something that was a little surprising this morning when we talked with the restaurants. While it might feel like, the people that check you out at the counter that maybe aren't providing the service should be wearing gloves. And I think what we heard, and you just touched on it again, is they should probably not be wearing gloves. That might make customers feel a little safer that you're doing things, but the best thing is for the people that are handling money, that just to be washing their hands on a consistent basis. Brandon and even maybe the mayor start off, just talk a little bit, like we did this morning, about enforcement.
Sure, I can start on on that. Again, like I had mentioned earlier, the whether it is salons of the sort you operate, or retail stores that were able to start opening yesterday, whether it's restaurants that are also coming online here Friday, all of this is exciting news. But with each opening comes a series of requirements that the governor is mandating, and that's, there's been a robust debate over it, but it is what it is. He has during this emergency moment in time, he has the power just to kind of unilaterally make some rules, and that's what's happened. And now it falls to the local community to enforce the governor's orders. So we are excited that you're going to be able to open, but be aware that there are still things that are going to be required for you to do, and if you're not doing them, that might be a problem. So enforcement is something that we have had to do all along. Now, frankly, up until this moment, the sort of enforcement we have been doing is making the decision about whether your business is essential or non-essential. And that's, there were probably 100 different businesses that thought that they were essential, that we had to go out and ultimately determine that they weren't essential. So there's been an enforcement component that we've had to do all along. Now, though, the task is shifting, and frankly, the task is going to get a little more difficult. So we are adding staff to this. There had been one Toledo police officer assigned to enforcement when enforcement was just essential versus non-essential. Now, we'll probably have 3 police officers assigned to this. We will have, City of Toledo employees who typically do other work that will be reassigned to enforcement. And of course, the health department is going to aid us. What's going to happen here are 2 things. One, there will be people, and don't be offended by this. It's just, this is how some people are. There will be people complaining about your businesses, perhaps. I am not a complainer, but boy, do I hear from people who are. And, we are inundated every day with dozens of calls of people saying, hey, I'm at Kroger, no one's wearing a mask, or, I went to Target and, there's no hand sanitizer. So as good as I know you will be, there will probably be things that fail to satisfy every citizen of our community. And so we will probably get complaints. We will also, though, probably do some just regular unannounced spot checks on businesses to make sure that they're being compliant, regardless of whether it is sort of a unannounced surprise kind of pop quiz, or whether the response is due to a complaint. We are, there will be enforcement folks who may come and interact with your business. And I guess what I would say is certainly familiarize yourself with the governor's requirements. They are easy to find on the chamber's website, the state's website, his website, our website. If you need guidance or advice, there's resources on this phone call that can help you. But it is also the case, look, nobody wants to be in this situation. Nobody wants to be, none of us want this. And even our law enforcement folks who are going to be in the position of having to enforce this, no one's going to come out with a tape measure and make sure that you're 6 feet apart, not 5 3/4. That's not going to happen. Just use your best judgment. And frankly, if it's clear that you are in good faith trying to follow the orders, that'll go a long way. If you appear to be flagrantly ignoring the orders and delighting in ignoring the orders, that will probably not serve you as well. It's just common sense. In the earlier call, this is the last thing I'll say, I talked about a famous Supreme Court case 50, 60 years ago when the Supreme Court had to define obscenity. And the justice who wrote the majority opinion, and these are justices on the Supreme Court, or, Harvard Law, Yale, I mean, these are the brightest legal minds we have in the country. They couldn't do it. They couldn't define obscenity. And Potter Stewart was the name of the justice. In his majority opinion, he wrote, "I can't define obscenity, but I know it when I see it." In a similar regard, it might be difficult to define in every case whether a salon is complying with the governor's orders, but we can tell it when we see it. If we go in there and it looks like that there's some sort of, people are crammed together like sardines, okay, we that'll be easy to figure out. But if you're trying your best and you sincerely want this to work, we'll work with you. So just use your common sense. You'll know it when you see it. So I guess that's as eloquent as I can be. I don't know if we want to hear from the health department on more specifics, but that's kind of the attitude that we are taking on the enforcement side.
Brandon, anything to add?
Yeah, just a little bit. So as the mayor mentioned, it will primarily be complaint driven, but if someone calls in a complaint on your business, we're not going to swoop in and shut you down. We're most likely going to call you first and just say, hey, we received this. Are you working through your issues, or what issues might you be having? And we're going to work with you that way. It's really only when we start receiving repeated complaints, or it's very clear that, as the mayor mentioned, you have a huge group of people just congregating in a very close space, that we might come out and say, okay, we really need to fix this so that we're not spreading the virus in our community and we're not making things worse. So really that's the main way that this will work. And as the mayor said, it's a partnership between a lot of different entities to make sure that you're safe, we're safe, and your clients feel safe when they are visiting your establishment.
Great, thanks, Brandon. Appreciate that. We do have an opportunity. I don't see any more questions in the chat room. So I don't know if we have any more questions or not. You can also raise your hand. You look down at the bottom. You can do that, or just break in if you take yourself off mute and break in if you like. Oh, I see a question. I should mention we do have a couple other partners on the line. We have our Minority Business Assistance Center that we work very closely with. They do very similar work to the SBDC in the minority community, so feel free to reach out to them as a resource as well. And we have Bob Bethel from the Employers Association, another one of our Reboot partners, and they focus a lot on human resources. So if you have any HR questions, feel free to reach out to Bob Bethel at the Employers Association.
And if I could chime in real quick, I see, Danielle, you submitted a follow-up to your original question about what masks and proximity might do. And your follow-up says that you were wondering if everyone should be required to wear surgical masks because you won't be able to know if they're washing their cloth mask or if it's actually clean when they're coming in. Businesses can require, it's not a requirement at the state level or the local level that everyone must wear a face mask in your establishment, but you could require your clients on an individual level. As far as wearing surgical masks or something you provide, PPE generally, especially the medical PPE, surgical masks, N95s, you'll probably be hard pressed to find those. I think it is getting better as far as the available supply, but I mean, if you have a distributor who will supply them for you and you want to require your clients to use them, that would be up to your discretion. but I wouldn't rely on being able to always get those surgical masks, especially if we do see an uptick later in the year, or if the hospital services start seeing an uptick in client and patients coming in. So that's one of those things to keep in mind, that PPE that's normally reserved for those industries will probably be hard pressed to find. But if you set that policy for your local individual salon or business, that is up to your discretion.
Great, I think that clarifies. Also, I had a comment, for if some of you aren't watching, Alexis at Channel 13 left her phone number. If there's anyone who's getting ready to open, and I'm assuming you wouldn't mind answering some questions or maybe even being interviewed, her number is there if you want to call in and do that. And then we had another question about what to do if we're closed again in the fall. Boy, I'm not being flippant, but let's just not even think about that. We really hope that does not happen. I don't know that anyone has the answer to what will happen if we indeed find ourselves in that situation. Again, I think the more that everybody does their part, whether you're a business owner or you're a consumer, if we all do our part and we all do what we can, stay home when you don't feel well, hopefully we can avoid a scenario where we have a stay-at-home order again. I don't know if anybody else wants to answer that one, but that would certainly be my answer, is that's exactly what we're trying to avoid.
Wendy, there were a few questions that came in through the registration, and since I'm not in the industry, I didn't understand what it meant, but multiple people asked about double booking. And what does that look like? Are they able to do that? And I don't know the definition of that in the industry, but maybe somebody can answer that.
Brandon, you need someone to explain that to you so you can answer the question.
I have an assumption of what it means, but if I could get the actual industry specific knowledge of what that term means.
It means
this is John.
You would have clients being booked twice, different clients at the same time, and that's what it means. Double booking is you're adding clients to your books, more than one person.
So that means, so you're starting maybe a client, you're putting their color on, and then you're going and you're giving someone a haircut and then going back to that client. Brenda, is that what you mean? You think that?
Well, no.
No.
That if you're working with a client and one is on the shampoo bowl, one is under the dryer, then similar to what you said, that's double booking. They're there at the same time. They're all getting different services. Hopefully they're all 6 feet apart, but that's what double booking is. You're having more than one client at one time working on them.
Okay, so thank you for that. That gives a lot more clarity, and I wanted to make sure I speak specifically to the question. In regards to double booking and having multiple clients in your facility, the biggest thing you want to make sure you're adhering to is that distance. So if you can have multiple clients there and they are appropriately separated and hopefully wearing face masks or face coverings, because it doesn't need to be a medical grade mask, that would likely be a safe way to go about your business. You could also, if you're booking clients at the same time, because you know that sometimes clients don't show up or they cancel or life gets in the way, maybe have clients wait in their vehicles until you are specifically ready for them. So even if you are starting hair coloring on one and you know you have a haircut that's been double booked, maybe have the individual waiting for the haircut wait in their vehicle until the hair coloring is far enough along that you won't need to go back and forth between those individuals. And they can also still be at a reasonably safe distance. I don't remember if the mayor said it on this call or if it was on the call this morning, but we're not going to be there with a measuring tape if it's 5.5 feet apart. As long as you're doing your reasonable best to keep around 6 feet, that distance, and people are wearing masks and you are washing in between clients, that will be probably your best guidance to move forward with. I will say if you have multiple clients there, you probably should consider, if you're going from one to the other, of washing your hands in between each time you transfer from one to the other. And I know that would be a cumbersome step, but it's really going to be the best way to protect. If client A has something you don't want to transfer, COVID or even any other infectious illness, you don't want to transfer that to client B or yourself. So especially in salons, that repeated washing, because you are around the face, you are dealing with the head and where the respiratory droplets are going to be coming from. You want to take that extra precaution to maybe get soap with a lotion so your hands aren't prunes by the time you're done each day. But you definitely want to be cleaning in between. Make sure your implements are cleaned in between. But otherwise double booking, as long as you have the space and you stagger your clients appropriately. I don't think that will be a big issue, but if you have a very small space, you might want to consider just doing almost like a one after the other. As soon as one's done, you clean the space, invite the next one in, and then do it that way rather than having multiple people present in a close space at the same time.
So I think to clarify though, that is not prohibited by the order specifically.
I have not seen it prohibited at the moment.
Okay.
The order, and especially the specific sector guidance, mainly is concerned with making sure that distance is there, establishing a maximum capacity for your location, and making sure everything's clean between use.
Okay, great. Any other questions? Again, you can raise your hand or ask it yourself. Julie, were there any others that were asked ahead of time? You're still on mute.
Yes, there were a few. Let me get to those.
Okay.
There were a few folks who were having some challenges finding some sanitizing products quickly. I think we addressed the things with masks. When there was a question about keeping doors locked and closed while they're operating to keep people from coming in. And then there was a question about employees not being comfortable coming back because they might be at risk. What is the process for that?
Okay, I was typing out a response to someone else, so I am back on board. So as far as closing and locking doors, the biggest thing you want to make sure is you're not violating fire and safety building codes. So you have to allow people to be able to exit. Now, if you have multiple entrances and exits, you could designate this one's an entrance only, this one's an exit only, but barricading or locking in a way that cannot easily be undone would probably not be the safest, just in case there was some kind of emergency and you had to leave quickly, or your clients who may not know your facility as closely as you do needs to leave quickly. As far as, could you repeat the second question? I'm sorry.
There was a question about employees feeling uncomfortable coming back, even though they now can come back. What should a business owner do in that situation?
So that feeling of consumer safety certainly applies to your employees as well. And I think communication is going to be one of your greatest allies. Let your employees know what you are doing to protect their health, to protect the health of your clients as well. You're going to want, though, if they have underlying conditions, if they are advanced in age, those are the biggest risk groups for COVID-19. So that's also where it might come into play, screening your clients before they come in. You might consider taking temperatures at the door before they enter. You might consider asking them, do you have the following symptoms? If so, let's reschedule at a time to protect my employees. who might be in those high risk categories. I think I've answered that. If you need something more, please let me know. There's lots of requests for guidance, and we're happy to keep hammering.
Yeah, and I would say too, we've probably ventured into the HR legal. Again, you're like, well, am I going to fire that employee? Am I going to let them, not work, stay on unemployment? I would reach out to the EA. Bob Bethel, I guess, had to leave, but he did put his email address. And then you may also, want to talk to, if you have somebody that you work with, an attorney, they may want to ask that question. Again, the unemployment, is through the end of July. If you have somebody in that type of situation. But again, those are those individual things that you're going to have to really think about it as a business. Can your business operate without that person? That might also be a good question to maybe talk a little specifically with our SPD CRM back about how to handle those types of things. That's probably beyond what our health director, health department director should be guiding people on. Sorry about that, Brandon, but that's really an HR issue. But you had a great response to that, is communicate with people. If they just think they're walking in the door as they usually, as they did before, and they don't feel, comfortable, if you let them know that you're doing everything that you can. But I think that's something every business is going to face. I know I'm going to face that here with my staff at the chamber, and you just have to work through that on an individual basis.
And Wendy, I will be sharing the chat with everybody who attended. So any of those links or phone numbers or emails that are in there, everybody will get from me. Great.
Any other questions? We are right at the 2 o'clock hour. Is there another question?
I have 2 questions.
Okay, great.
One, with the contact tracing, if someone is COVID positive and it ends up being traced back to my salon, am I liable for anything in regards to that? That's question 1. Question 2 is on property taxes. Okay, we all have property taxes that come due in June. We've been shut down for 2 months. Are we going to get any relief or a discount for those property taxes?
I don't know if we have the right folks on the call necessarily on the property taxes and the liability. I'm going to put my colleague on the spot here for a minute. Brian, I know that you're on. We're working on some of those things relative, and the federal government is working on some liability legislation. I don't know if we have all of the details, but Brian, can you just at least touch on that? I think a lot of those are unknown right now, but Brian?
Yeah, thanks, Wendy. You're exactly right. There's conversations right now going on both the federal and the state level to try and address that business liability component, waiting to see how some of those additional details work out. So I think in the coming days and weeks, that'll become more clear as we move forward on that. On the property tax side, I know we've been in contact with the county treasurers and Lucas and some of the other counties. It sounds like there's gonna be some programs being put in place. We hope to have some more information soon that can provide some relief for you. For the exact reason you stated, is you've been closed for a while, so there's maybe some cash flow issues. So more to come on both of those.
Yeah, if you haven't signed up on our website, I'm not sure if you're a member or not, but if you're not, you want to go ahead and sign up, and then you'll get information from us periodically. That's the kind of thing that we will post when new legislation is enacted and those changes are made, or just go back and check our website on a regular basis. We're keeping an eye on that. That's obviously something that's very important to all businesses, and that gets a little messy with this tracing is, what happens if somebody traces it back to me? You know, is that proof that I did something wrong? You know, those are all the issues that, you know, you're not alone, the industry's not alone, everybody's really struggling with that. But I think that the lawmakers are understanding that that's going to be an issue, and they're moving forward to try and find some resolution to both that and I guess the property tax is the easier one. And I know that a lot of jurisdictions are thinking about that, you know, in relation to continuing to provide a little assistance to folks. And I don't know if, how many of you on the line are own salons that are booth rental versus employees that, and I don't know that we necessarily have any answers, but I know that your folks doing the booth rental have not been eligible for unemployment until the 15th. So coming up on Friday is the first that they've even had a chance to apply for that. I would ask you if you've got some comments on that now, that's great. To anybody on the call, or just keep us posted on that, because that's the kind of thing that we like to try to monitor. And if we start to hear that, oh, it's clogging again and people can't get in, for what it's worth, we will make sure that the state hears about that from our part of the state.
So, and I'll add one thing. Yes, I cannot speak to the legal, and I would not want to venture a guess there. But something that might help the contact tracing process in general is if you do keep a log of which clients you saw on which days, so that if something is traced back, not that it originated in your facility or that your facility has any culpability, but we can know, well, which other individuals were also there, so that we can follow up with them, just to make sure that we are hitting every member, and there's not someone walking around thinking that, oh, I've not had any exposure risk, I've been staying home, but they did happen to have it at a particular facility. We just want to be able to connect with them as the health department to make sure that they're protected, as well as you yourself as that business that is seeing clients come in.
And I am hearing from folks that is open now for the unemployment for self-employed or those that booth rentals in the salon industry. So people have, it has become available. I thought the 15th was the first time that would be opened up, but I know a lot of people have gotten in the queue. So like I said, we'll continue to monitor that. You're still probably a couple weeks out, I would imagine, from actually having some money hit your account. But you know, keep providing us with that feedback. Any other comments, questions before we wrap up? Thank you all so much for joining us. Business owners, you know, I said that this morning to the restaurants, you're business owners, so you're risk takers, you're resilient, you're creative. And we know that you'll figure out how to make your clients safe and how to make your business successful and get through this tough time. We're all in this together as Ohioans and Toledoans. We want to make it work. We don't want to shut businesses down. We don't want to see businesses go out of business. So everybody's, you know, kind of rooting for you. Reach out, ask for help, ask for clarification, you know, access resources that are available to you. And good luck, stay healthy, and continue to reach out to the Chamber and any of our Reboot partners if there's anything that we can do to help you.
Okay.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you all so much. Have a great rest of your day.
You too.